live. Awesome. Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, the 3rd of September. This is AI with Kyle, and I'm going to be running through the daily news updates in the world of artificial intelligence, as well as taking questions from the live audience. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a great week so far. It is moving very fast. Everything is moving very fast. I'm also doing another stream immediately after this one where I am building in public. It is day 3. 3rd of September, so I've managed to align it by accident with the actual month itself. I'm building a AI application from scratch in 30 days and taking it to, I hope, revenue within that time as well, because building is now relatively simple. I actually have the basic version of my app working after just 2 days. So 30 days is a long time, but I need to also market it, work out how I'm going to be selling it, put together the sales material, etc., etc. So I'm going to be doing that over the next 30 days. So follow along. And if you want to build, if it inspires you to build in any way, please tell me and we can build together over the next 30 days and hopefully launch something by the end of the month. So that live stream will be immediately after this one. And again, like everything else, will be available on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube if you want to find both these news updates split into nicely ordered videos. You can find what you need very quickly. And the new lives which are building in public. We are doing lots of new stuff with YouTube, so that is the place to be. If you're watching me on TikTok right now, you also won't be able to see my screen when I share AI updates or when I'm building in public, so YouTube is going to be the best place to be. I am working on an incredibly complicated workaround to get you my screen on TikTok, but it requires having a PC, which I do not have because I'm very like Mac focused. So I need to get a PC and route things through. It's a lot. It's a huge thing, but I'm going to try and do it. It's on the list. Cool. Good morning, everybody. Oh, Will says you're currently building in Replete. Awesome. I'm personally using Lovable, but they're all very good tools. I never know how to say Replete, if it's Replit or Replete. I should probably work that out. Although arguably that's their problem. That's a branding issue. Okay, the big news came in yesterday. Anthropic. So Anthropic are probably, well, they create my favorite model, Claude. If you don't use Claude, I highly recommend trying it out. They have Claude Sonnet and Claude Opus. Really good models. Not as popular or well known as ChatGPT, but I think it's unfortunate because they are such good models. So Anthropic has just raised an additional 13 billion. It's a Series F, so they've been raising for a while now, and they have a post-money valuation of $183 billion. That's a lot. Now, I know in the world of artificial intelligence, the billions and now even the trillions are being thrown around all over the place, and we become kind of desensitized to how much money that is. So I thought it was actually really useful to check how much that valuation is. So Anthropic's new valuation of 183 billion compared to traditional companies. So I did a quick check. There are different ways to value companies, so this is very rule of thumb, but I think it's still quite a useful exercise just to kind of help us benchmark. So Boeing, who make planes, are worth 120 billion, so 60 billion less than Anthropic. And remember that Anthropic is a new company. Boeing's been around for a while. Nike, probably heard of them, are worth 160 billion, so again less than Anthropic at their 183 billion post-money valuation. Ford is only worth 40 billion. Ooh, yikes. GM, General Motors, only 50 billion. Disney, who are a massive company, not just because of the films, but because they are a media empire, 170 billion. So Anthropic is now larger than Disney. And Disney's been around for a long time. There are obviously larger companies. So McDonald's, for example, is worth 215 billion, so slightly 40 billion more, 30 billion more than Anthropic. That's a lot of money. But I think it's useful to put it in context of traditional companies, because the amount of cash being put into AI companies is eye-watering. Now, of course, a post-money valuation is based on future earnings. It is based on what people believe the company is going to be worth in the future. We do not yet have evidence that that's going to be the case, and this is what leads to discussion of a bubble and a potential correction, a crash in the market, because we are not necessarily, we are not seeing these AI companies make sufficient revenues to justify these valuations. So when cash is poured into these companies, these Series Fs, Series As, Bs, Cs, etc., that means that the investors are placing a bet, basically, generally an intelligent bet, but not always, on the future earning potential of the company. We are not necessarily seeing this line up. Palantir, for example, is a good example of this. A lot of money's been thrown at Palantir, but they are not making very much. And I think the market started to realize, like, how are they ever going to make this amount of revenue? How are they ever going to recoup this investment? And that's when we saw a bit of a downturn. I believe it was last week, when there was a little bit of fear in the markets about artificial intelligence and is this a bubble? So we do need to look at this in terms of the future, because a valuation is one thing, but remember that valuation can drop to zero. It can collapse in just as easy as it can be built up. That said, I think Anthropic is an amazing company. I think they are developing artificial intelligence in a very responsible way, which a lot of AI companies are not. So I'm glad to see them getting in infusions of cash so they can build up and hopefully do amazing things. And if you have not used Claude, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. I think ChatGPT is down right now as well. I just tried to use ChatGPT for something and it did not work. So if you find, let me check if it's down. Is ChatGPT down? If there's an outage right now, so what happens whenever there's an outage with ChatGPT? Yep, it's down. GPT down is used to report mysterious outage that stops bot from responded. So I saw exactly the same thing just before this. I went into ChatGPT, I asked a question, it showed me the sources and then didn't give me any text. So it seemed to have done the inference, it worked it out, it just hadn't printed the screen, it hadn't shown me what it had found out. So everybody else seems to be having that bug as well. Tell me in chat if your ChatGPT is working, because mine is not. Whenever this happens, this is great news for something like Claude, for a company like Anthropic, because it means people go and look for alternatives, because we realize that we can't do anything without AI. So hopefully a few of you today will go and use Claude and then stick with it, because it's really, really good. Cool. I'm going to hop over to the questions, see if there's anything. Oh, thank you for all the likes. Good morning. Morning, Matt. Morning, everybody. Awesome. So I wanted to do, it's not really news, but you've probably seen this chart. It's where's my foot pedal gone? There's no use having a useful foot pedal to switch screens when you take your foot off it, is it? So there's this chart that's been going around, which you've probably seen, very good looking, but it's nonsense basically. And Ethan Mollick over on LinkedIn and Twitter has called it out, saying, hey, come on, you know, I'm a big fan of Ethan Mollick, and so if you see me repeating what he says a lot, it's because I think he's generally right. So Ethan is saying this chart is everywhere and it's been horribly misinterpreted. Yeah, we're letting things like facts and clarity get in the way of, you know, a good chart, a good viral chart. So the chart itself has a big headline at the top which says where AI gets its facts, and the big number that people have been kind of throwing around is that 40% of the facts of ChatGPT, of artificial intelligence, come from Reddit. So 40% from Reddit, 26% from Wikipedia, 23% from YouTube, 23% from Google, down and down and down. 4.6% from Home Depot. Okay. So these are the top domains cited by LLMs like ChatGPT and Perplexity. So it does say that on the chart itself, but I think people have ignored that part. So what's happening here is these are when an LLM like ChatGPT searches, it's going onto the internet and finding information elsewhere. When it does that, that is when it is going to these websites. That is very different to where AI gets its facts. Where it gets its facts generally is from the pre-training. It is what information we put into our LLM and it learns from. So during the training phase, that is the kind of core, the main corpus of knowledge that an artificial intelligence has, a large language model in particular. What we're looking at here is supplemental. So sometimes an AI, increasingly more and more, they will go and do a web search for you to kind of check on facts, and then they will cite where they found that fact. This used to be Perplexity was the main large language, the main AI chatbot that did this, but now pretty much all of them do this. They have a search functionality to allow them to pull in new information. So for example, just before I did this live, I wanted to pull some information about Anthropic's $183 billion valuation and compare that to other companies. So I had those numbers. Using previous models, that wouldn't have been possible because the knowledge of the model had a cutoff point, and Anthropic raised cash yesterday on the 2nd of September. So that would not have been within the knowledge cutoff because it was yesterday. Now an AI model will go and search and it will find that information. So Claude was able to find that information and then give me an answer. So what this chart is saying, though, which is wrong, is that AI gets its facts from these websites. So 40% from Reddit, 26% from Wikipedia, etc. And they're trying to say, oh, this means that you should focus on Reddit in order to get your business recognized and to get it indexed into large language models. That's kind of what they're pushing at. Not true. This is where large language models are getting their search results from. Very, very different from where they're getting its facts, which is generally from the pre-training. So if you see this chart, this graph floating around and everybody getting excited about it, just be careful because it's misrepresenting the facts, and they've kind of hidden at the bottom the subtleties of it. But you will see this chart because it is absolutely everywhere, and like a lot of things in artificial intelligence, it is nonsense, unfortunately. But people don't necessarily scratch below the surface and have a think about why that is. And this is one of the issues with AI potentially, is that it's going to inhibit our critical faculties. I was actually picking up a parcel yesterday from a local shop, and there was a kid in front of me, I don't know, 13 or so. He's buying a chocolate bar, and he paid with cash. The chocolate bar was 70p or something like that, and he paid with a quid at £1. Sorry for our non-British people. He paid with £1, and the shopkeeper gave him back 30p change. So 100 minus 70 equals 30. And the kid was standing there looking at it, and he couldn't work out if it was the right change. And then he asked the man for a receipt because it would have the numbers or something like that. And the shopkeeper's like, "No, what are you talking about? Of course it is. You gave me £1. It cost 70p. I gave you 30. You don't need a receipt. Go on, get out of here." It's quite rude. But then me and the shopkeeper were talking, and we're talking about the fact that people cannot do mathematics now or calculation. They cannot do calculation because we've been using calculators. And we've been using tools that mean that we don't need to practice that particular muscle. We don't need to practice that skill. I was in a coffee shop, a few months ago, and their till went down. So they started taking cash payments, but the young woman could not calculate the change from like a £5 note. She just could not do it. So she had to get out her phone every time to do the calculation. The fear is that our critical faculties will also degrade because we're going to be using artificial intelligence. So we'll look at a chart like this, or any chart or any information, and it's going to be harder and harder for us to tell whether or not this is valid information, because if we outsource our critical faculty to artificial intelligence, we're not going to practice that muscle. Kind of on a similar note, I'll pull this forward. So yesterday or a couple of days ago, a trash bag or a rubbish bag was thrown out of a window at the White House, and it was caught on video. And people were like, what's going on? This is bizarre. So it's a widely shared video of a trash bag being thrown from a White House window. Trump has said that it was artificial intelligence. So this is an additional wrinkle here. So the White House, the kind of people who run the White House, the staff have said, no, it was a trash bag. They've confirmed it was a trash bag. I don't think they've said why. But despite that, Trump has pointed to basically saying, no, it's AI, it's fake news. AI and blaming AI has become the new fake news, basically. And it's going to be increasingly difficult to tell what is true and what is not true. So Trump says, one of the problems we have with AI, it's both good and bad. Fair, I agree. If something happens really, really bad, just blame AI. But also, they create things. It works both ways. If something happens, it's really bad, maybe I'll just have to blame AI. Okay. He's very honest. The subject arose after Mr. Trump contradicted his own press office by claiming a video that was highly circulated this weekend in which what appeared to be a black trash bag was thrown from a White House window may have been fabricated, etc. So, yeah, truth, critical faculty, working out what is real and what is not is going to become really hard because, one, AI becomes very good at fabricating truth in text, in video, in imagery, becomes really hard. But at the same time, it's going to degrade critical faculty in thinking things through. So thinking about numbers, thinking about veracity, thinking about, like, could this potentially be true or is this made up? So we are heading to I think, a scary admixture of these two things. Things that are faked very well and humans are not able to tell what is faked very well. And yesterday I talked about how China have, I almost said China like Trump there, China have instituted as of the 1st of September a new law. So it's actually in law, it's not just a recommendation, but a law that AI generated text, video and imagery must be explicitly and implicitly marked when it is published. So that means both in metadata, implicitly and explicitly, with a this is generated by artificial intelligence. So China is trying to tackle this. Whether or not that will work, we'll see. They only launched that initiative two days ago. But I'm sure a lot of regulators in the West are looking at that to see how that goes, because that is an interesting experiment, and to see if they can actually do it successfully, and if bad actors find it difficult to go around. That's always going to be the big question. Just scrolling back. Good morning, everybody. Oh, so many likes. Oh, 3,000 likes. Goodness, what's going on this morning? Thank you, of course. There's so some of you will know I'm a gamer. I like to I play video games, and that is how my brain works basically. And TikTok have disastrously, they've added kind of league tables and gamified elements into TikTok directly. So the more likes I get, or the more gifts, etc., it kind of unlocks things, and then it just triggers my brain in a way that is very unhealthy for me. So they have challenges each week. So my challenges this week are to collect 50 diamonds. I've got 7 so far. To visit the live analytics, don't even know what that is. To go live for at least once, and have no violations. That should be fine. I don't normally have violations, thankfully. But because it has all these gamified elements, that triggers the dopamine centers in my brain, that the same ones that make me like video games, unfortunately. Which is, I guess this is a more practical use. Okay, I'm not seeing many questions, so I'm just scrolling through. I have to scroll through every single like as well. So when you have 3,500 likes, as you can imagine, the interface is not ideal for finding the actual information. Oh, Emin, I just saw a question from you. Hey, Emin. Oh no, sorry, it's not Emin. Have you noticed law firms now advising companies to update their TOS regarding companies' use of AI? Not specifically. I'd be very interested in that though, because law and legal firms and regulation often always lags behind artificial intelligence. So I'd love to hear what that is specifically, if you don't mind telling me in the comments, and that's something I can definitely look into and cover on a future show. It makes a lot of sense. That I know lots of companies are putting in place restrictions against agents and against scraping. So they already had scraping. Scraping was against terms of service, but now with AI, there are new AI scrapers and agents. For example, like, do you allow an agent to access your website? Because if it's an e-commerce website and people are using agents to buy stuff, that's probably a good thing, and that might be where we're going in the future of e-commerce, with AIs making our purchases for us. Because imagine that in ChatGPT, if you're able to scroll through It makes recommendations on a new shelving unit you want to buy, and then you take photos of your room, and it's like, cool, you need this kind of size, this kind of shape. Do you want me to order that custom made from, you know, the furniture shop, or do you want me to provide you with an IKEA suggestion, for example? And then being able to purchase directly in ChatGPT, it sends off an agent, fills out all the details, etc. That's probably where we're going. Obviously, there's a lot of hurdles in terms of giving our credit card information to AI, but I think we will be there in a couple of years' time from now. Talking about IKEA, the funniest thing, I was just in Stockholm, so I was visiting the lovely Lovable, a vibe coding app, and they flew me over to Stockholm, to Sweden. But part of it, on Sunday, we went on a walking tour of Stockholm, and we had a lovely guide called Catherine, in case you happen to be watching, thank you, Catherine, who walked us around, gave us information. And she was talking about IKEA, because you can't talk about Sweden and not talk about IKEA. And she talked about it in context of Sweden and Denmark have had a rivalry for years. Most countries have another country that they're at war at for centuries. So for Britain, it's France mainly. Or sorry, for England, it's France. I should be more specific. And for Sweden, it is Denmark. And she told us the funniest thing. I don't know if this is true. I hope it's true. But in IKEA, the various groups of objects generally have a theme. So there might be a whole bunch of lamps which are named after Norwegian fjords, for example, or there'll be mirrors which are named after Finnish glaciers. Whatever it is, they tend to have themes within those names, and they're all kind of Scandinavian origin. The the Danish theme, and I hope this is true, is it's rugs and carpets. So things that go underfoot, they all have Danish names, which is very, very funny if it's true. It's probably an urban myth. I'm not going to look it up because I want it to be true so much, because it's very funny that the Swedes are walking on their ancestral enemies every single day. If you're Danish or Swedish and know if this is true, I'd love to hear. And sorry if you're Danish. Maybe that's deeply insulting. I'm really having trouble finding questions. There we go. Oh, Teko is saying, basically companies need to update them or face getting sued. Yeah, I'm sure in Europe in particular, so under the UAAI Act, that's going to be a big issue. Yet to see any big action from the UAAI Act, which came into play at the beginning of August, I think it was. It's EUAI Act. It's the worst thing to say, EUAI Act. EIUAI Act. Yeah, 1st of August. So it's been in play for a month. Obviously, it's a very short time in terms of regulation. But I'm sure we'll see some activity from them. Got some questions from YouTube. Hi, Kyle. Random question. How did you get leads to your AI teaching business? Did you cold email corporate businesses? What was your main method? So a couple of things. Cold email, no. I have used cold email previously in other businesses, and it works. It can work. It's complex though, and I don't recommend it if you're not technical. If you are going to do cold emailing, make sure you don't use your main primary business email. That's the biggest piece of information, or the biggest piece of advice, because you will get it slapped down. Instead, create secondary domains. So like iamkyle.com. I wouldn't use. Sorry, that's not my username. That's not my web address. aiwithkyle.com I would not use, but I could use like a .org, a .net, .so, .io, etc. Those are fine. So you use secondary domains, and then you can use something like snove.io or Snovio. I don't know how you say it, to run cold campaigns. It works fine. That's not how I personally did it. So I started to sell workshops. So when I started, I was not comfortable doing public speaking. I was not comfortable getting up on stage. So I actually started with small workshops pro bono to charities. And they were small, they were 5 to 10 people, and then built up from there. That allowed me to build up my confidence in the material. It allowed me to test the workshop material. It allowed me to get my own confidence up as well, because public speaking did not come naturally to me. And then from there, I started to get referrals and testimonials and to scale up from that point. So I highly recommend my students do that when they are going out and getting workshops. You then overlay on top of that, reaching out to low-hanging fruit, so your own existing network. That is going to be the easiest way. So there's an activity I give my cohorts, which is literally, all right, write down 3 people that you can email and ask if they or anyone they know would be interested in AI training, and just do it. Just go ahead and email them. So don't overthink it. Don't think about the messaging too much. Just shoot them a text message saying, hey, do you know anyone who would be interested in AI training, or would you be interested yourself, your company? Works really well. And once you get that first workshop, either a charity workshop or via your personal network, you can build momentum, because once you have a first one done, you get reviews, you get a testimonial, you can get a photo of you on stage, and suddenly it becomes more real. In terms of the marketing material, yes, sure, but also for yourself. You now know, oh, I am a workshop facilitator, which is a great boost to the confidence, and it makes it easier to start talking to other companies. Then in terms of cold outreach, I recommend LinkedIn. So LinkedIn via something like LinkedIn Helper, or what's it called? Alfred, meetalfred.com. Generally, cold outreach on LinkedIn doesn't work very well. If you've spent any amount of time on LinkedIn, you know how annoying those messages are. But because there's such a huge amount of demand for AI education right now, and because every company on earth is like, what do we do? Because of that, you can send LinkedIn messages to heads of learning and development, heads of training, etc. at corporations, and you will get hits because it is so top of mind right now. So that works really well. And then you just send them over a one-pager. So you don't pitch them. You say, I run a AI training workshops, do 1-hour workshops. We can introduce your staff to how to use AI safely and increase their productivity. Would you be interested? If so, I'll send you over a one-pager. Nice and simple. That's basically the message I send. And then along with all of this, so low-hanging fruit, early charity pro bono work, LinkedIn outreach, you can then overlay things like content creation. So right now, what I highly recommend, even if you're not giving workshops, is if you are in a particular niche, so let's say you work in social enterprises, or you work in sustainability, or you work in marketing, or you work in education, whatever it is, those spaces generally don't have an AI expert. Lots of people talk about AI, but in a very general sense. So very few niches have their own person who has basically claimed the space. And if they do, it will generally be 1 or 2 people. It's incredibly open right now, because remember, the latest iteration of this technology is quite new, and we're all learning at the same time. So I don't come from a technical background, but I end up having conversations with people who are at the top of this field, because it's not a huge kind of discrepancy between people, because we're all learning at the same time. So you can build up a following, you can build up an audience in your particular niche, and you do that by helping to translate what's happening in the world of AI into that industry. So if you work in education, for example, you're going to be the one who absorbs all the news, all of the updates, what's going on in artificial intelligence, and then you bring it to other people in the education industry who are behind you. And by doing that, huge service, but it also opens up opportunities for speaking, for workshops, for advisory, etc. And it is still relatively open. It's an open field for that kind of thing. However, content marketing, inbound marketing in general, takes a longer time. It takes 6 months, 12 months of consistent work before you're going to see any kind of any activity. Whereas outbound, like LinkedIn messaging or literally reaching out to your local network, that's going to be a lot faster. So in my AI workshop cohort, I actually have 30 days of activities. It's like do this, do this, do this, do this every single day to help you get that first workshop. And it's 30 different activities, all giving you different outreach targets, because there's lots of different ways to do it, honestly. Marketing is a wide field, and it's what I did before artificial intelligence. William Bly, have you given any thoughts how you'll test your Lovable app once you completed it? I have a near testable application I've built, I want to monetize. Yes, so I'm cheating a bit because I have an audience. I have an audience of about not half, a 250,000 people, which means if I need testers, I can reach out to them. I can pull together a beta program, I can launch. So I've built up my audience first so that now I can very rapidly iterate and test out new product ideas, test out new applications, software, etc., etc. This is something that I highly recommend other people do as well. There's a guy called YonnyMan.mp4. I'm modeling him at the moment. He's done a really great job where he basically sat down 2 years ago and he's like, okay, I'm going to do a video every single day. I'm going to get my little camera. I'm going to talk to camera directly. I'm going to build up an audience, and then I'm going to work out what to sell them. And he has now created an application. It's called Brainrot, but he did that after maybe 300 days of just recording his journey of building. So he built up his audience first into hundreds of thousands, so that when he was ready to launch, boom, here it is. Hey guys, you guys have been following my journey. I built the application. I need testers. I need people to kind of kick the tires. I need my first customers, etc., etc. So having an audience makes it a lot easier. Peter Levels is probably the ultimate example of this, because he launched he vibe coded a flight simulator, and he made hundreds of thousands from it. And if you've seen it, it's incredibly basic, but because he has a large audience, he was able to put it out in front of people, build in public, generate interest, and sell advertising slots on it, because he had that reach. Basically, having a reach and an audience makes everything much, much, much easier. And I say this as somebody who's launched multiple businesses over the last 15 years. Now that I have a group of people I can talk to, it's simple. And it also means that if something doesn't work, I will know very quickly as well, because I can take it to these 250,000 people, say, hey, are you interested in this? And if they say yes, I can proceed with it. And then I can do a wait list, I can do a pre-sale, I can build the first version with them, etc., which allows me to de-risk it each and every term. Whereas before that, when I used to make my previous businesses, I would build the whole business first, then launch it and hope for the best, which is really, really difficult. I actually wrote a whole 10-week guide on this called the AI Summer Camp, which walks you through over 10 weeks how to build up a business using artificial intelligence, totally free. It's on my website and in the newsletter. But that walks you through the process of starting to build that audience first, so that you actually have beta testers, you have champions, you have people who can run it with you. If you do not have that, then your best bets are partnering. So you find somebody who does have an audience and you cut a deal with them. So you basically rent their audience. Either you pay for it or you give them the proceeds of the sale via affiliate, or running adverts. So if you don't have your own audience, you either have to rent it or you need to buy an audience. Those are the two basic options. I highly recommend Alex Hormozi's books. His books are good. I know he's controversial because of his recent webinar where he made 120 million in a weekend. Like, he did very well, but this is after years of saying, I have nothing to sell, and then he sold 120 million worth. But his book's very good. There's a book called $100 Million Leads. It's his second book. I've got his third book. His money model book just arrived. Somebody sent it to me. But his second book, $100 Million Leads, is a very good book from a marketing point of view. Cool. It's kind of an interesting one. I saw it on PC Gamer, which is not normally where I get my AI news, but oh great, readers preferred AI written short stories over one of my favorite authors in a blind test. This is an article about an author. I'll pull up the actual blogger page. It's the most amazing page. Look at this. So it's on mark-lawrence.blogspot.com, and he did a test with his readers. Is AI writing any good? What he's done is he's basically written a bunch of paragraphs himself in, I think, the fantasy genre. Yes, Mathin was born to the river folk rooted on an island because stories claimed a curse kept the demons from walking across water. Yeah, fantasy. He wrote I don't know, is it 5? So 8 pieces of flash fiction, all of them 350 words. Some are written by writers, and so writers with significant experiences whose books have many readers, and some were written by GPT-5. So he put together a bunch of writing samples, and he had his blog visitors, and about 1,000 of them, vote on which ones they thought were human and which ones they thought were AI. And the results were fairly shocking, and this is why it kind of made the news. So the results were, here we go. There's an aggregate decision of 964 voters. So they correctly judged the origin of 3 stories. They got 3 others wrong, and they couldn't meaningfully decide on the remaining 2. So that is, that means there were 8 in total. 3 were correctly identified. 3 out of 8 were incorrectly identified, and 2 they couldn't tell between an AI and a human. Yeah, obviously this is not a full study. It's only 1,000 people, but it's not bad. Well, sorry, it is bad if you're a writer, but it's not a bad study. And if you know fantasy at all, one of the writers who contributed to the story was Robin Hobb. So this is not a small writer. This is not a small author. Incredibly important. So it was split. And interestingly, Robin Hobb, okay, people did not know whether the Robin Hobb book was AI or human. Woo! So very, very interesting. Oh, and the ones that were written by AI, there were so there were 4 written by AI. 2 of them were considered human. 1 they couldn't tell, and 1, story 7, was identified as AI. So I feel bad for someone like Janny Wurtz, who was an author, who everyone decided that Janny's work was AI, but it was actually written by Janny. But by a long split, about 80% of people thought that their writing was written by AI. So this is a fascinating study. I'd love to see this on a much, much, much larger scale. But as a kind of an armchair statistics study, this is pretty damning. And the PC Gamer article is talking about kind of blaming the humans, saying that it's gross that we can't tell the difference. So instead of thinking, okay, the AIs are really good, that's interesting, instead it's, oh, it's gross that the humans can't tell the difference. Like, well, there's a reason for that. It's very well done, apparently. So it's worth looking up that study. It's not a study. That experiment, I think, is very interesting. I'd love to see this done on a larger scale. I think the results might be quite upsetting for authors. And this was GPT-5, by the way. Yeah, so very, very telling. There are still kind of, not moral, but I think if you asked a lot of people, would you read a novel by an AI? Most people would answer no at this point. But this points towards the fact that they might not know if they were reading an article by an AI, which comes back to that story we had last week from Wired, or 2 weeks ago, where Wired magazine had published an article by an artificial intelligence. People had read the article, it got past the editors, like it was totally published, and they only realized it was AI when it came to paying the author, and the author had bizarre requirements about you need to send the money through PayPal, etc. So it was the financial irregularities that were the red flag, not the writing itself. So we are going to get to a point, especially as these models get better and better, which they are doing, where it will be indistinguishable, and we need to have a big soul-searching decision there about whether we care about the authorship, whether it comes from a human, whether it comes from artificial intelligence, because increasingly we cannot tell the difference. It's not enough just to look for the M dashes and say AI. it's going to become more and more difficult. Have you seen the Thinking Game on Prime? Very interesting, the history of AI. No, I have not. Thinking Imitation Game or Thinking Game? Oh yeah. About AlphaGo. Wait, is it a different one? Oh, it is a different one. Okay, there's an AlphaGo documentary, which is fantastic, which you should also look up. That is on, I think that's on Prime as well, but it's also available free on YouTube. So DeepMind have published it themselves. That was from 2017, so that was after the defeat of Lee Sedol by AlphaGo, DeepMind's Go playing artificial intelligence. So I don't know the thinking game, but it looks like it's also following Demis Hassabis, so I'm definitely interested in seeing that. I'll probably watch that later. Very, very cool. Thank you. I will watch that and I'll come back with my thoughts on it, because there aren't that many documentaries about AI. I mean, because it's kind of new. Sorry, it's not new. It's been around for a long time, but the new iteration of it is relatively new. It's Daisy. So I'll watch that later. I was going to watch Alien Earth, but maybe I'll have to watch this instead. Gamla Stan is beautiful. Yes, Gamla Stan is beautiful. In Sweden, in Stockholm. Stockholm? Can you create a lovable TOS updater to include the AI usage section? Every business needs it. Yeah, you could. This is Tekleroy. So Tekleroy earlier on in the chat mentioned lawyers are currently working with companies to help them update their terms of services for the AI age. But we could, I mean, Tekleroy, you could do this. You could build an application which you input your current terms of services. So you could add your URL from your website into it, and it would be able to flag like, hey, these are the points where AI is going to impact here, and you should probably think about updating. And then, so you do, yeah, that's how I do it. I would do the scan for free. So you get an AI to read through and be like, you need to, this is a red flag, this is an amber flag, and these are green flags, these are fine. But the red flag issues, you need to sort this, and this, and it gives a checklist. These are the things you need to sort. And then the paid version would be, do you want me to fix them for you? And then it would basically run it through an AI script, which takes existing terms of services, runs it through an AI script, and comes out with spits out a new terms of service that is applicable in the world of AI, and you would charge, I don't know, $20, $50, $100 for that. And then the upsell on that would be, do you want a human? So you'd have on staff solicitors or lawyers or people who can check this. Do you want a human to sign off on this? And you would charge a couple of thousand for that. So that would be your flow. Yeah, you could build that for sure. I would immediately run to Lovable and have a look at doing that. So the one complexity there is you take on a certain amount of legal liability. So you can either disclaim that, say, you know, no, this is not a lawyer, this is just a tool to get you in the direction. But if you want to charge for it, then I think it's probably better to take on some of that legal liability, but get it done properly. So that would be the main problem to solve with that business, and I think it's definitely doable. But building an AI scanner and an analysis tool, yeah, I think that would be really, really valuable. And what you could do if you want to get rid of the legal the legal liability is, you have a scanner, it flags up, these are problems in the world of AI in your terms of service. Do you want to talk to our trusted partners? And then you have a number of partners, firms that you work with, who would help them redo their terms of service, and then you're going to take a referral cut of that. So that would definitely work. How much does the average setup cost to build and deploy apps and products? Not much now. Really good question. I mean, you can use, it depends what it is. So it depends is always the answer to absolutely everything, and it's not a helpful answer, but it depends on what you're trying to do. If it is something basic, so for example, I've built this, I'm building a new app right now, and I'm doing it live on stream, and I'll be doing it after this. I've built the basic version of my app, which I'm trying to pull up on screen. That's too complex. I've built the basic version in 2 days. It's taken me 2 hours to build, and it's not ready for the limelight. It does have user login. It doesn't have payment or anything like that. But it's taken me 2 hours to do. That previously, if I had built it myself, would I have been able to build it myself? Probably. It would have looked horrible, but it would have taken me a couple of weeks. Or you could hire a developer, and it would have cost you a few thousand, probably. probably a bit more. The vibe coding tools that we have right now, so things like Bolt, things like Lovable, Replete, etc., are really good for putting together a first version of prototype extremely fast. That said, these tools are getting better and better and better. So when I first used them 6 months ago, I used Bolt mainly back then, you could get together a basic prototype, you could kind of see if it worked or not, and then you'd probably take it over to Cursor or a more kind of a more sophisticated coding tool in order to flesh it out and turn it into a proper application and get it ready for production. Increasingly, that is less needed. So Lovable, for example, now has back-end integration with Supabase. They have an integration with Stripe. They're putting in lots of new integrations that I'm not allowed to talk about, which are going to allow you to deploy a vibe coding app a lot faster than previously, and at a higher level. And remember that these tools just get better and better and better and better. Like Lovable, for example, the company is 9 months old. They are new. They are very, very new. They've had 3 offices in that time. I was visiting their 3rd office over the weekend. But you can tell it's a very new company, an incredibly exciting company, and they're pushing out changes very, very quickly. So what this means is the capacity, what we can build with vibe coding, is increasing basically every single week. So come back to your original question of how much does it cost? The average setup cost is very low. You need a vibe coding subscription, and if you go over the credits, you pay for the additional credits. But we're talking maybe, I mean, the basic subscription is like $20 a month. I personally spend around $200 a month on credits, about 200. But that is compared to hiring a developer. That's like a couple of hours of time for a developer. That's absolutely nothing. So it's extremely, extremely cost effective to do so right now. The bigger issue is distribution. So because it's becoming so cheap and so easy to build applications, the question now is, well, how do we get people to use our application? Because supply is increasing because it's so easy to build stuff, but we are therefore competing for the same demand. So if you go to one of these directories of AI apps, you'll see that it's just full of great ideas that fail to find a market, and Product Hunt as well. It's like a graveyard of failed ideas because they did not put into place a marketing plan. They just built something cool and thought, off you go, off you go into the world, good luck. That's not enough. Like, build it and they will come doesn't work anymore. You need to set up what your actual business plan is as well, and that's what a lot of engineers and a lot of coders are missing, is the business side of it as well. So that has to be taken into account. But in terms of cost and so average setup cost, very low now, extremely low, less than $1,000, I'd say, a few $100. Tekov saying it would be backed by law firms. Yeah, I think that's the way. Otherwise, it opens up a whole can of worms. So I think that is the way to do it. I agree. But you would use Lovable to build a kind of a front end. It doesn't have to be Lovable. You can use an AI tool to build a front end, which people use to scan their terms of services. Things like this exist, like cookie policy generators, etc. Really, really popular websites, and then they sell, custom made cookie policies for you. But you can generate a boilerplate. Lots of people do that. Same with terms of services. So you'd have a website like that, but it scans and analyzes. And what you could do, if you're really aggressive, is you can build your marketing and your sales is you build a tool which goes and it scans websites and it scans their terms of services and it does it for them. It goes ahead and produces a report, and then you ping them over the report saying, hey, you've got a few issues here. Do you want help fixing them? That would be the kind of cold outreach method, but you'd lead with value by saying, I've already scanned your terms of services. Do you need help fixing them? That would be really cool. Mike Diamond, creating a feature roadmap this week. What's that for? So I didn't see the comment, but if you're building something awesome, fantastic. Is the only way to implement AI in a sector that has confidential data offline LLMs need H100s. Is this on the law firm? Yeah, law, certain sectors do need secure large language models, which generally will mean local. So you can buy the H100s, you can cloud host it, but then that introduces other confidentiality, privacy, and a lot of law firms in particular are very conservative with those things for good reason, because of legal liability. So they might literally want a server sitting on their property full of H100s or H200s if they can afford them, or H20s. I guess you could buy H20s if you want, or maybe you can buy the new Huawei chips. I saw there was this leaked Huawei GPU which is meant to be very good. Don't know if it is. People are speculating about how good it is or not, but it's much cheaper than Nvidia. Jasper, the sound is always low on YouTube. I don't know why that is. Is anyone else finding it low on YouTube? That could be, I don't know. There's such a lot of complexity here. I listened back to the recordings on YouTube and they were fine for me, but maybe during the live they're low for some reason. Let me nudge it up a bit. I can and there we go. There, I've put it up. Hopefully that's not blowing out now. William Blythe says, I listened to Hormozy, he's great. I've contemplated starting my own AI content around the vibe coding process. Awesome. And possible as it's food related, we'll partner with some influencers. I think that is the play. There are lots of people talking about AI generally, but if you can narrow down into a niche, and food is a big niche, that would be a really cool channel content to do. So it'd be AI vibe coding for cooks, for in the food industry would be really cool. I actually met, where was it? Oh, it was at Lovable. One of the people who works in their community team at Lovable, she said that she had given her grandma, who I think was Moroccan, hopefully you're not watching this and I'm getting this wrong. Yeah, her Moroccan grandma, she'd helped her vibe code an app basically with Lovable to help capture her recipes. So she'd made an app and then given access to her grandma to capture the recipes and how she made stuff, so that they can basically save those recipes in the family, which I know a lot of families do by writing it down. But an app version of that, kind of cool, like a really cool idea. And that had been built in Lovable in a day or so, and then it was easy enough for the grandma to use to kind of take photos and to save the ingredients, etc. Very cool. Jay Moore saying sound is good during the live. So I'm not sure what's happening, Jasper. Sorry. Sound is the bane of my life. You can't see it, but there's a complicated. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 images of myself right now, and I've got the microphone here, and sound is having to synchronize between absolutely everything and go to various different channels, and it's a pain. I should do a video or a guide on how to set it up one day, because I know some people want to do live streams like this, and it's taken me months to get this set up and running. But here we go. Awesome. I think I'm gonna finish up the news live stream. Yeah, it's about an hour. I am gonna go ahead and do the building live stream very shortly. So I'm building in 30 days a brand new AI application. We've got the minimum viability product working as of yesterday, and I'll show you the updates I've made. So if you watched the session yesterday, I had some issues with the API, and I fixed them offline, because it's kind of hard to do API stuff on a live stream, because then you can see my API keys and then, oh no, what's this bill for $2,000 in my ChatGPT API? So I fixed all of that and it is now working. So I'm going to be continuing and improving the results from there. So we are getting there. The whole idea with this project is over 30 days, I'm going to build a new business. First day, which was Monday, I came up with an idea. It's I pull transcripts from YouTube and convert them into lead magnets, and then those lead magnets can sit below my videos and generate leads from YouTube. So that's what I'm building. Day 2, I put together the basic MVP, ran into a lot of problems in Lovable, but that was actually quite useful because it allowed me to talk through the 4 or 5 different ways you can fix errors in vibe coding, because you will have errors, so it's good to know how to deal with them. And then today, day 3, I'm going to start refining, well, fingers crossed, I'm going to start refining the output because I now have the input working. So we're going to work on the process so that the output starts to be more useful because it's quite generic at the moment. So I'm going to switch over to that live stream in a moment. That's going to be on YouTube and TikTok. If you're on TikTok, you can't see my screen, which makes it a bit of a weird live. So YouTube is definitely going to be the place to be. I think it's also on Twitter X as well, so you can watch it there if you want. All of these videos, so the live videos and the building in public videos, all go onto YouTube afterwards, and they also get chopped up. And there's a newsletter which is free, comes out every single day, which includes the information from the previous day in a written form, so you have better access to it as well. Awesome. That is me for today. I'm gonna hop off now. Make sure you're subscribed on the newsletter and on YouTube. I'm gonna have a glass of water and then hop back on and do the building in public stream. So I'll probably see a few of you in a moment. Thank you, everyone.